Welcome back to part 3 of The Question, a Blog Talk Radio conversation with me, Doug Pagitt, your host. This is Tuesday, May 26th edition. As you know, a Blog Talk Radio conversation, The Question, is normally, during the 9 months of the year, a daily radio broadcast. But this summer, it's going to be a weekly broadcast, and we'll be joined today on Tuesday by all of our regular weekday guest hosts. That'll be Shelley Pagitt at 10. That will be Carla Barnhill at 10:30. That will be Steve Scherber at 11, and that will be Tony Jones at 11:30. They'll be talking about natural health, parenting, home remodeling and repair, and religion in their different sections. So, folks, we're glad to have you aboard. What we do here on The Questions, we talk about the happenings of the day. We talk about the things that are important. We talk about the things that aren't so important. We put them all together, and we have you chime in on a question. If you would like to add your voice to our conversation, we'd be delighted to have you at 646-929-1199. You can also click to talk over at Blog Talk Radio and talk right through your computer. And you can also chat yourself in on the chat room. Be glad to have you in. If you have a question of any variety, whether it's the one we're talking about or a question just, about maybe who wrote a book, we will put the crack staff, the info czar, Rob Tarr, on it for you. Hey, big news going on out there in California, as you know. Supreme Court of California is trying to make sense out of this gay marriage mess they've got going in California. Here's my comments about what's going on in California. First of all, it's a strangely conservative state. Secondly, strangely conservative in the fact that many people who are quite conservative think California is like the most liberal place in the world, but it ain't. Secondly, here's the problem they've got themselves into in California. They're not sure how they want to make laws over there in California. See, they're taking all the potential options and mixing them all together. How about if you have judges do it? How about if you have the mayor do it? How about if you have the state legislature do it? Or how about if you use a referendum and have people vote on it? And what they decide to do in California is do all of them. And if you don't like the way one of them is, the answer one of them is given to you, then go on to the next one. So if the state legislature passes some sort of ordinance that you don't like, then get a bunch of petitioners together and get yourself on the ballot and then have people vote for complex issues. Now look, California, pick one. Pick one and stick with it. Either let your governor just decide it or one of your other elected officials. Go ahead and let the state legislature make laws if you want, or just turn it all over to judges or vote on them. On everything. But this idea that if you don't get the right answer, then you just want to move off to the other group, silly. You should stop it, California. Look, I don't live in California. I visit there and I work there on occasion, but it's not my state. And I guess if that's the way y'all want to do it. But the problem is you mess up everything for all the rest of us. Because in a federal system, what one state does have impact on another state. So we kind of need you to tidy it up over there, California. Eh? That would be just awesome. I don't know I know we've got some listeners going on over here from California, and I'd be glad to hear your thoughts on this. Give us a call at 646-929-1199. How you feel about the entire referendum model of setting policy. Now, on the gay marriage issue, look, the issue is that we are conflicted in this country now, as we always have been, with what the role and who owns the concept of marriage. We have to get over this. The solution ought to be that there's a legal orientation between two people, that two people can decide to be of one tax benefit, of one legal status with one another, and that ought to be argued and decided on civic legal grounds, just like a business partnership or anything else. And then there ought to be those who want to give a particular kind of relationship between two people significance and meaning. That could be the church. That could be a synagogue. That could be a group of friends at a neighborhood block party. It doesn't much matter. Different people can give different levels of meaning to it. And religious folks can have all of our own expectations and desires. But this idea that religion functions as a surrogate of the state in making people legally connected to one another is a real problem. And what this gay marriage issue is pushing and I hope people keep pushing all the way down the road on this, is why do we allow the churches to be surrogates of the state in declaring two people to be of a particular legal status? That is the question that's at hand. That is a question that has to be solved. In California, I don't think you're going to solve that by putting 1-sentence or 3-sentence descriptions on a ballot. But they shouldn't have to. We should all be stepping up. And other clergy out there, other pastors like myself, we should be stepping up and saying to people, you know what? We shouldn't be surrogates of the state. We shouldn't be doing the work that the states are doing. That's just not the right place for us. So if you think differently about that, go ahead and chat it on in. Go ahead and call it on in. And if you think that's the wisest thing I have ever heard, you can just let it soak on in. Finally, going on in the news today, North Korea set off a nuclear bomb test the other day. At the same time, tested a short-range missile, trying to send a message. Are you, North Korea? Look, here's the problem on this. The nations, the United Nations, the set of nations, the world community, if you want to call it such, says nobody gets to have nuclear weapons other than the people who have nuclear weapons. And if you don't have nuclear weapons, you don't get to start making nuclear weapons until you have nuclear weapons. And then when you have them, then you get to keep them, but then nobody else gets to start having them. That's the problem. The problem is that there's two standards. There's the standards for those who already have nuclear weapons. Okay. Then there's the standard for those who don't yet have them, and that is you will never attain nuclear weapons. So India was told, don't attain nuclear weapons. Oh, they did. Okay. Pakistan, do not develop nuclear. Okay. Well, as long as you've got them. So what do you think North Korea is going to do? What do you think Iran is going to do? They're going to say, we don't want to be on the list of can't have nuclear weapons. We want to be on the list of already have them. Cockamamie. Ridiculous. So, that's what I think about what's going on in North Korea. They want to be treated like a nuclear power. Granted, their leader is mentally unstable by every indication that people like me who observe the news hear. Yes, he's mentally unstable. We're aware of that. Right? Got it. He's a nutcase. He's a crackpot. Is that what we're going to do then? We're going to decide, if a group of people, other nations, think that you're wookuk, then you don't get to have nuclear weapons. But if we think that you're a reasonable, decent person who's going to do what we want, then go ahead. Then you can have them. That's going to be fine. What kind of sense does that make? It doesn't make any sense. And this is the kind of trouble that you get into. This is the kind of trouble that the Bush administration was into. It's the kind of trouble the Clinton administration was into. It's the kind of trouble that the Bush administration was into. It's the kind of trouble that the Reagan administration was into. And it's going to be the trouble that the Obama administration is going to get into. Is that they're trying to argue the rationality of a fundamentally irrational point. And that is, if you have nuclear weapons, then we will just simply deal with you and try not to proliferate the amount of nuclear weapons. But if you don't have them, then we're going to all of a sudden come down on you and sanction you and curse you and punish you and treat you like you're villains until you get them. I mean, the entire system begs for people in other nations to acquire nuclear weapons. It makes them want to have nuclear weapons all the more. This is the question. Blog Talk Radio conversation with me, Doug Pagitt, your host. If you're watching on Ustream, you're going to have to turn it to part 4, and that's to follow up with Shelley Pagitt. She's with us here on the line now. So we'll be back with Shelley Pagitt here in just 1 minute. The news updates brought to you by the Onion Radio Network.